I'm so excited to have Roger Love here with us today. Roger is recognized as one of the world's leading authorities on voice, and that is not hyperbole. His clients have included Tony Robbins, John Mayer, Selena Gomez, Brendon Burchard, Simon Sinek, Reese Witherspoon, Bradley Cooper, and more. Roger, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So this isn't the first time we've had a conversation like this. You were on my other show a few years ago on Get Yourself Optimized, and boy, that was a hugely valuable interview. And now I come armed with even more questions and more kind of insight into what you do and the magic that you do, because I've attended your Voice of Success program, which is a multi-day program, deep dive into a lot of your curriculum. It is awesome. I am just so floored. My wife, Orion, and I both attended, and it changed how we speak, how we present on stage. And so thank you for that.
No, that's beautiful. People come and they think they're going to spend 3 days with a voice coach, but they have no idea what a voice coach might do for them. So they come with all kinds of interesting expectations. And when they realize how important voice is to every single aspect of their life, business, and personal, including self-confidence, I think they are caught up in the magic of it. And it's a great experience.
Yeah, and to see people transform in front of our very eyes, that was the most impactful. I mean, I got so much knowledge from it, like the chest voice and the vocal warm-ups and all that sort of stuff we'll go into. But to see people who were willing to put themselves out there, get on stage, and show how bad they were at speaking or at singing or presenting, and to have you just change their posture or have them speak with from a different part of their body to resonate more. I was just floored, and people saw before and after right in front of their eyes that was almost unrecognizable. It was really cool.
Awesome. I think people are of the misconception that they are first born with the voice that they have today. And I explain to people that you were born with an instrument, but how you learn to play that instrument wisely or unmusically is what created the voice that you have right now. And in the beginning, we're just imitating all the sounds that are around us. So if my dad speaks like this, and all he wants to do is cut down lumber. And if my mom speaks like this and she's just really airy, then I start to imitate those voices because I am dependent upon those people to survive. So I want to be fed. I want to be carried. So I end up sounding like my dad and sounding like my mom. And then all of a sudden I'm an adult and I think that that's my voice or that's my voice. And I literally take people wherever they're at and say, no, you can have any voice that you want. And maybe your voice isn't working for you right now, so let's tweak it. And then, again, people are so surprised that we can make dramatic changes in someone's voice the way they are perceived in seconds.
Yeah, and I think for our listener who's thinking, okay, how does this relate to marketing and sales? It is so pertinent because your voice is usually your first impression, right? So, well, maybe they see you first for a microsecond, and then words start coming out, and they make a split-second decision about whether this person is credible, whether this person is worthy of their time and authoritative and interesting, engaging, fun. It's all that, right?
Yes, and look, no matter what kind of marketing you want to do, you have to understand that science now supports what I've been saying for about 30 years, is that the way to move people emotionally, the way to get what you're saying into their brains so they can decide if they like your marketing and even like you, is not based on words anymore. The idea that if you had the right words that people would like you and care about you and buy your product, that's just not scientific anymore. Now we know that how the brain works is the brain processes emotional information first before it even thinks about anything logical. And the brain thinks that sounds are emotional and words are not emotional. So if I say, hey, I want you to go on a date with my brother, he's fine, then you're like, oh, did you even say anything to me? But if I said, do you want to go on a date with my brother? He is fine. Then the brain says, oh, show me a picture. Can we do it on Thursday? I'm ready for lunch today. So when you understand how the brain works, that it processes emotion first, and you understand that that's sounds, not words. And then if you're not thinking about the sounds you're making, forget about the words. They're never going to get into the brain, never going to be remembered. You're never going to move people to action, and you're never going to change what people think.
Right, right. So one of the most persuasive people that who changes how we all think is Tony Robbins, and you had a huge impact on him. That was actually how I first heard about you. It wasn't through Jay Abraham, who we're mutual friends with, but with
Right.
Tony Robbins. So what had you what did you do to adjust what Tony was doing so that it saved his voice, his vocal cords? Because he speaks so much, his voice has become raspy, and he was going to lose his voice altogether if he didn't make some changes. Thankfully, he got your help, and he still has his voice. But what were the few magic things that you did that changed everything for him?
Well, Tony's very unique, and his voice is also very unique. When Tony in high school shot up to the height that he is and had an interesting chemical balance issue that happened in his body, well, his vocal cords got huge, and his larynx got huge, and his Adam's apple got huge at the same time, and so that brought along with it its own set of issues and problems. So that's not a normal voice. So a lot of that huskiness that he's had since then is due to the fact that it's almost based on the same reason that he's so tall and so big, because his vocal cords grew gigantic very, very fast.
Right.
But he came to me for the number one reason that most people come to me, because they want to talk a lot because they have good business to do and relationships to make, but they lose their voice. And he was losing his voice just the same way Brendon Burchard was losing their voice, just the same way that any of the famous celebrities, actors, marketing people, business CEOs come to me. They're first thinking, I really want to speak all the time, and I lose my voice. So I make it that no one ever has to lose their voice. The human voice is set up to speak 24 hours a day and never get hoarse. When you're fast asleep and dreaming, and you're screaming to your favorite soccer team, go, go, and no sound is coming out of your mouth, your vocal cords are still vibrating, actually. So there's almost no period of inactivity where your vocal cords are completely at rest, and the body is set up to speak or sing 24 hours a day. So if you can't, you're doing something wrong.
So what are you doing wrong typically that needs to be adjusted?
A lot of times you're not sending the right amount of air to the vocal cords. Most people are actually holding their breath when they're speaking. And that's why they talk like this what's called a vocal fry or a squeaky hinge, because they're holding their breath all the time, and the vocal cords are slamming into each other without the cushion of having air coming through. So most people lose their voices because they don't know how to exhale the right amount of air. They're holding their breaths. As soon as I teach them what they don't know about diaphragmatic breathing, because most people are sick and tired of hearing the phrase, oh, diaphragmatic or exercise class, and they're like, what else is there? But they don't understand that the key to diaphragmatic breathing, how it relates to speaking, is that you're only supposed to speak while your stomach is coming in. You're supposed to pretend that there's a balloon in your tummy, and your tummy comes forward as if that was filled with air. But then the key element again is only speak while your stomach is coming in. That sends the right amount of air to the vocal cords. That's why people have beautiful, strong, rich voices and never lose them. Most people are just holding their stomachs tight, trying to look good in a bikini or a bathing suit, and they're not getting any air to the cords, and that's what makes them hoarse.
I'm sure this is related too, that people will keep talking even though they've run out of air, and then they start sounding pretty weird because there's nothing happening with the breath, and there's no power with the words coming out.
Exactly right. People think they're getting paid by the word. So if they just added a few more words at the end, that they'd be able to close the deal, but they ran out of air 6, 7, 8 words ago, and they're still going.
I love how you can like totally get into the personality of the person. Like another thing that this reminds me of from The Voice of Success is when you were having people use more edge. I had no idea what the heck edge was and why it was important, but the transformation of somebody putting more edge in their voice when they had like an airy voice or something that was not quite right and it didn't land for people, they didn't sound credible or whatever, and to have them add more edge in, holy cow, that was amazing. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. When the right amount of air meets the right amount of vocal cord, it creates a great, thick, strong, beautiful, emotional sound. But most people either have not enough air coming out, where it goes to that vocal fry we just talked about, or they have too much air coming out, thinking that air is care, thinking that if I just had a little more air in my voice, I'd be so sexy. I'd be able to sell anything. People would just listen to me and think I really care. I'm so nice. But that airy sound actually is one of the worst sounds you can make some of the time, because when you speak really airy, the air comes out of your mouth and just dissipates in the air, so that the people who are listening to you don't feel any power or strength. They just think that you're just all fluff and they can take advantage of you. And also air, when you speak really airy, it dries out your vocal cords so much, like you were sucking on a blow dryer, because all that air dries out the moisture on your vocal cords. So speaking airy might be really nice if you happen to be in the bedroom close to kissing someone, but it doesn't work in the boardroom, and it doesn't work when someone's more than 2 inches away from you. Then you need to have enough edge in the voice. When I say edge, while my stomach is coming in, so I'm getting the right amount of air, and edge, I feel like a buzz in the back part of my throat. That buzz is a good thing. That edge is a good thing. It moves farther away from me, and it literally vibrates the bodies of anyone that can hear me. So having an edge is great. Having all air is really not as great as people think.
Yeah, and that also reminds me of you had an Aussie on stage, so an Australian who it's that kind of musicality, but it's in the wrong way. So every single word kind of ends with an upwards thing. It just, I don't know how to describe it, but you describe it perfectly when you were on stage. Could you describe the problem with that kind of an accent and then how you adjusted it, like right in front of our eyes?
Sure. First of all, it's not wrong. The Australian regionalism accent, that has a beautiful musicality to it.
Yeah.
What's happened over the years is the public has read all of these ridiculous articles, not written by musicians or voice coaches, about a concept called uptalk or valley talk. And those articles, which are actually misinformed, those articles mostly say you should syllable of a sentence.
Oh, I lost you there I lost you there for a couple seconds. So what those articles say, and then I lost you. So if you could start over
Great.
with it.
Sure. What those articles really say is they caution people about going up in melody to a higher note when they get to the last syllable of a sentence, thinking that if you go up, then everything you say sounds like a question, and they don't want you to sound like a question because maybe it's not a question. And if you're saying, I want you to buy this, maybe you don't want it to be a question in the listener's mind.
Yeah.
So all of these people from all of these articles are afraid of this concept called uptalk. And Australians, many of them, they do go up as it gets to the last syllable of the sentence. I'm from Australia, and where we talk with a lot of melody, and a lot of times it goes up at the end, and it does sound like a question. But that's not the evil of it. Mm-hmm. Here's the difference between uptalk and valley talk. Valley talk is bad. Uptalk is fantastic. Here's the difference. When people speak and they slide up to the last syllable, it's okay, Stephen. I still want to talk, Stephen. It's okay, Stephen, if I call you the wrong name. It was a question anyways. And you answered back, no, it's Stephen, Roger. So it totally worked. All right. So instead of going scooping, which does sound bad, it's okay for you to go up. Listen to the difference. I'm going to scoop. Bad. I love my wife. I love chocolate. Today's Thursday. Bad. Here I'm going to go up, but it's just to a higher note. I love my wife. Today's Thursday. I love chocolate. It doesn't beget a question. It doesn't make you think that I'm asking a question. Going to a higher note is fine as long as you don't scoop up. Can you imagine somebody knocking on the grave of Mozart, waking him up, and telling them that in his musical compositions he cannot go up right before a silent part, right before a rest? Mozart, that would wake him up from the dead, and he'd slap you and tell you that's ridiculous. I'll go up and down wherever the music needs to go. So we don't need to be afraid of uptalk or sounding like we're scooping. We just need to be aware that we can go to the higher notes anytime we want. We just can't scoop up because then we sound like we're from the valley and that Frank Zappa was our father and that our name is Moon Unit Zappa, the daughter of Frank Zappa, who is actually credited with Valley Talk.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not know that bit of trivia, so thank you for that. I actually live in the valley now, so...
See? Now you know. you know, people ask me, they say, that there's a joke. They say, what's the fastest way to the valley? And the answer is marry a musician.
That's awesome. All right. So one of the powerful things you can do with uptalk is to keep control of the conversation if you are, let's say, getting interviewed and you don't want to get interrupted by the host of the TV show or right? So I just used that very technique so that I could continue my sentence.
You're a genius. Most people are taught to go down when they get to a comma or go down when they get to a period, down in volume, and also down to a lower note. That's what our teachers taught us in grade school. But when you go down, it actually makes the other person think that you're finished, that you don't have anything else to say, that it's their turn. So here you're doing an interview and you're being interviewed and you have all of these great things that you want to share. But the person who's doing the interview, not you, interrupts the speaker all the time. And then the speaker's wondering why that's happening. Well, because you're giving musical vocal signals that you're done. I say, Stefan, now I'm talking about this. And I really like eggs. And as soon as I go down, you think, well, Roger must be finished. And so you're going to say, what do you like about eggs? And I say, I really like the color. And then I go down. And again, you think that's your cue. But if I don't go down, Stefan, I really like the color. It makes me feel so happy. It reminds me of the morning. Then you know that I'm not done.
Yeah.
And you'll wait and not even think of interrupting me because my melody didn't go down.
Yep. Nailed it. That's awesome. That alone is worth the price of admission right there for you listeners. Employ that and you will have much more control over the conversation of when you want to pass the baton and not just whenever the host or the interviewer is wanting to interrupt. That's awesome. Now, I took many, many pages of notes at the Voice of Success, and I did this on my handy little Remarkable pad here. This thing is awesome. Have you seen this?
I have seen it, and I like it.
I love it. It's so cool. So it's if you're just listening, you're not seeing the video. This is a kind of like an iPad, but it doesn't have glare, and it doesn't have all the distractibility of an iPad or anything like that. I can't surf the web. I can't do email on this or anything. But it's just got this really cool little stylus with a felt tip, replaceable tip here. And I took probably, I can tell you exactly, 28 pages of notes from the 3 days. This is gold. I've referred back to this stuff multiple times. I mean, I must have, because I'm able to recall stuff like Edge and the vocal warm-ups. And so the thing is that if you want to really learn something, learn it with the intention of teaching it to others, right? And I wanted to share this information that I was learning at your event with my kids, especially my oldest, who speaks at conferences. I wanted to get other people who are who I'm helping, like consulting and coaching clients that I'm working with, to change their voice. And I've recommended you multiple times, so hopefully some of them will take me up on the recommendation to go to some of your events. So let's just pick something from here that I think is it is intriguing, but by itself, people would be like, "Huh? What does this mean?" Googs and Gugs are our mantra. I wrote that down. And somebody listening to this is probably thinking, "What the heck is that? Why is that valuable? Why was that a writer downer?" Can you elaborate?
I have my students do warm-ups multiple times during the week. Short, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. They can be driving in the car. They can do it in the shower. But these warm-ups are designed to show the vocal cords exactly where they need to be to go all the way up and down, and to be strong and thick and be healthy all day. And they're designed to get the air moving in your body and send the right amount of air to the vocal cords. So these warm-ups are things that I have people do to make their voice better. Because it's like, it's like scales on a piano. You want to be a pianist, and you go to the piano teacher, and they have you doing these ridiculous, what you think is ridiculous scales. And they have you do it for hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and years and years and years to get some facility going. And you're thinking, can't I just play a song? Well, the good news is that the voice doesn't take hours and hours and hours of exercises. In minutes, you can warm up your voice for the next 22 hours that you might be up and speaking. And some of my exercises sounds like Gug and Gug, where we go Gug, 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 and we do Gug, 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 and sounds that you wouldn't normally think would come out of your mouth. But I've designed these warm-ups to be time effective, so that after a few minutes, all of a sudden you're strong and loud, and you can go high and you can go low. And if you were hoarse before, or scratchy before, or if you had all of this phlegm and you were always clearing your throat, suddenly 5 or 6 minutes later, you're like, man, I feel so powerful and strong, and the sounds that are coming out of me make me feel better. And I'm going to now present myself the rest of the day the way I want to be heard. So Gug and Gug being the mantra of my vocal warm-ups.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I can't tell you how many times the vocal warm-ups that you created and are actually available for free, surprisingly, on YouTube. You got the male voice version and the female voice version. I would go do those warm-ups before pretty much every major speech. I did a bunch of recording for a sizzle reel and doing those warm-ups, and people would look at me outside as they're coming into the building, and they'd see me go goo 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 goo, and then they're like, "What the heck's that going on there?" And I don't care, because I want to be in my best top form. It's totally worth it. So I'll drop into the show notes for this episode the YouTube videos. I'll embed those for male and female voice. But there's so much more than just these few minutes of vocal warm-ups. Like you have a whole course, an online course about this, right? This like all the kinds of things you need to do to up your game in terms of your speaking and singing too, for that matter.
Absolutely. The first thing that people need to understand is that they've probably tried everything else to be more successful. They've got new credentials and they're reading new books and they're believing that this method or that method will get them to the next level of their success, whatever success is to them. And they have never thought about their voice. And voice is the first thing that you need to fix before you present anything, your ideas, your concepts, your products to any market. You have to think about your voice because people are not judging you, again, based on the words. They're judging you based on the sounds you make. Yeah. And they're deciding whether they want to listen to anything else you have to say after a few seconds. So the warm-up exercises and all of the content that I've created for the last 30 years working with the biggest, most famous voices in the world, the Tony Robbinses all the way up to the Bradley Coopers, to the Reese Witherspoons, to CEOs of every company on the Fortune 50 list. These people have realized that they've already tried all the traditional methods of achieving mass success as it relates to presentation and influence and communication, and they look to voice. So I'm always about how can I take everything that I've learned, that I've created, but also everything I've learned from working with all of these amazing, famous voices and put it into a program that people can really spend small, tiny bits of amount of time with, but make massive changes. So yes, there's plenty of free content available on the internet. Those people that want to really not just wander down a road and want actually to have somebody drive them down the road because they don't have time to waste should consider going to my program, The Perfect Voice. And the website is theperfectvoice.com. And as a matter of fact, I came with gifts today because I want to give people the vocal makeover that they didn't know they needed, but you and I know they needed because we hear the difference between a great voice and a voice that's just surviving to be successful. Yeah. So I'm offering $50 off of the program, which is already incredibly affordable. $50 off makes it a no-brainer choice. So you should go to theperfectvoice.com/buy, and I'm sure you'll provide that link for them as well.
Yep.
And you should make a tiny commitment in what you need to be your next level of success by changing the way you sound. And that changes the way that everyone perceives you, gives you control over how people perceives you, gives you the ability to move people emotion by emotion instead of word by word, and allows you finally to do what you need to do to become successful, and that is control the outcome of every communication you have. Because when you move people emotionally by emotion, because of the sounds of your voice, you get to the end of the conversation, you get to the end of the pitch, you get to the end of all communication, and you can have the result that you wanted to.
Right.
Instead of all of your words falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, and it's so overlooked, this aspect of presentation or even just of your presence in the marketplace. To have musicality, to have the control of the room, to know that that your speech is actually resonating off of their eardrums. And like, this is another powerful thing I learned from you, is to think of the words and the tonality and everything that you're conveying out of your mouth as something that is being transferred and received by your listener, your audience, in a very tangible form. There are molecules that are vibrating because of your voice, that are vibrating for them.
Yeah, let me say that in a different way. Your voice is a gift that you're supposed to learn and then give it away.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is also the phrase speaking is a physical connection, not just an audible connection. When you speak, sound comes out of your mouth in the form of invisible sound waves and is supposed to vibrate the bodies of the listeners. Those vibrations, some of them go into the ears, but they also affect the whole body. So you literally, when you're talking to someone, you're connected in a physical way. And those vibrations are totally already connected to emotions that you can feel and the listeners can feel. But if you don't have all of the melodies and all of the pitches and all the highs and lows, they're only going to feel one emotion and you're not going to be physically connected.
Yeah.
And I always say voice, people think that voice is for singers. You want to be a superstar singer, you got to learn how to use your voice. But when you look at superstar singers, the way they're using their voices, they influence people so emotionally. So all I did was, after spending 17 years teaching superstar singers, I decided that I could do the same thing for speakers, and that speakers could make the sounds that would vibrate the bodies of all of their listeners and influence them emotionally. And so you could have the same influence that superstar singers have and just be a speaker and have it be a noble, amazing sound that really achieves success for you and moves people emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah. And this applies most especially if you are on a stage and you have an in-person live audience. But it also applies if you have a podcast or a radio show or you're doing a webinar, because if somebody is not really receiving the strength of your voice or the authority of it, their bodies are not vibrating. Maybe it's not even your fault because their volume is turned low or whatever, but you have an opportunity to dial it in for them as much as you can, like given the constraints of that situation. So, in fact, you have a podcast now with. We want to tell our listeners a bit about it and why you started podcasting, because that's, again, free content you're putting out there, like the YouTube videos, and you're a very busy, very successful guy who has like blue chip companies and the largest celebrities on the planet contacting you asking for help. Like, why spend time on a podcast? And like, what's in it for you and for the listener?
Well, what's in it for me is I have this little tiny dream that I can't let go of, and that is I want to save the world. And the only way I could do it is one voice at a time. So my job is to create a bigger voice family all the time, because I think that if we all had the sounds we're supposed to have, then it would break down all the differences that we have in religion and politics, and you're so different than I am, and I'm so different than you, and we don't agree on the same thing. Well, if we all made sounds that showcase the best of ourselves, I really think the world would sound better, people would get along better, and I would be saving the world. So a podcast gives me just another opportunity to be wherever people are listening. So they'll be in their car and they'll be listening to the podcast. And so when the company iHeartMedia approached me, they were like, Roger, we want to save the world, and we think your voice is a big component in that as well. I decided it was the perfect partnership. So we're wherever podcasts are, on the iHeart app and iTunes store and wherever you're listening to podcasts now. And it's called Love Your Voice, because when you make the sounds you're supposed to, other people will love listening to you, and you will finally love your voice instead of being a hater every time you hear yourself speak. So yeah, I'm excited about giving as much free content as I possibly can, as much family, people all together sound better so that everyone's happier and everyone's achieving greater success.
Awesome. And so you mentioned something that really resonates for me, and you're kind of frozen here. Hopefully this will come back.
Am I still frozen?
Yeah, you're still frozen.
Well, let's get me out of the frost.
So, not sure.
Still?
Yeah.
La 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 la. Okay, let me turn my camera on and off. Hold on.
Okay. Now you're back. Perfect. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Awesome. So one thing that really resonated with from what you just said that I want to explore a little bit more, because I have a feeling that some of our listeners can relate to this as well, is not really enjoying the sound of your own voice. Now, I'm much better than I was, but I still don't like watching my own speeches, listening to, well, I do listen to my own podcast because I love the content and the guests and everything. Like, so I listen to my own show, but I don't like listening to recordings of myself that much. It doesn't, I don't fall in love with my own voice. And I'm working on that, but I have a feeling that there are folks listening who relate to that. So what would you tell them to do as a first step to start really loving their voice and not, besides, of course, subscribing to your podcast?
The answer is that most of the people on the planet do not in any way love their voice. As a matter of fact, I've made a little game over the last 30, 40 years that I've been teaching voice and asking the most famous voices I ever have worked with, the superstars, singers, the Stevie Wonders and the Luther Vandrosses and the Barbra Streisands of the world and the every singer you could possibly imagine. I've asked them, do you like your voice? Do you think you have a good voice? And not one of them has ever told me, yes, I think I have a good voice. I really like listening to it. The most they would say is, oh, it's just big, or oh, it's just high, or it's just loud. So understand that most people, even the people that have amazing voices, they aren't used to the difference between how it sounds to them coming out of their mouths and how it sounds recorded back. Because when you're speaking, the way you're actually judging your voice is in internal bone vibration. There's the bones in your skull are vibrating. Right. And that's how you're sort of hearing it inside. But you might be thinking, well, I am James Earl Jones of voice. I should be doing the handle for CNN International. But then other people are listening to you and they think you sound like Minnie Mouse. So it would be CNN International. And you're like, when you listen back, you think you sound like Minnie Mouse. But when you were vibrating inside your head, you were like, I am the king of the universe or the queen of the world. So we're not used to hearing ourselves because we don't record ourselves that much. You get a new phone and you record a new voicemail message and you're like, this phone's going to be great. It's got 53 cameras of every angle and I can change the color of the world with this phone. And then you record your voicemail message and you listen back and it sounds like this. Wah, 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 wah. Wah, wah, wah. Because you're not used to recording yourself. So first of all, I believe everyone should record themselves speaking at least once a week for a few minutes, just so they get used to it. With these things in mind, you probably don't speak loud enough. So speak a little louder. You think you're shouting, but the other people are just starting to hear you when you speak a little louder. The other thing is, speak with a little bit of melody. Pretend that you're singing. You can't just stay on one note the whole time. Now I'm excited. Now I'm angry. Now I'm happy.
I've been accused of this, by the way.
This is called monotone. So that one time a week that you're recording your voice, you need to try to add some melody, like I'm walking up the stairs or like I'm walking down the stairs. Don't always just stay on one step hoping the world and good business partners are going to come to you. You need to speak louder. You need to have more melody. You need to practice only speaking while your stomach is coming in, which, by the way, gives you more volume and gives you more melody because there's more air to play with.
Yeah.
So recording yourself, get off the one-step monotone, boring the rest of the world, and start adding melody to the voice, and you'll already be on a track that is a mile ahead of everyone else who isn't even thinking about the way they sound. And get my program, The Perfect Voice, and learn how to finally give yourself that makeover, the vocal makeover that you didn't need, that you didn't think you needed, but you absolutely needed. I remember years ago, I went to this super famous manager and I said, I want to meet with you, because he had already sent me 1 million clients like George Michael in the heyday and all these big stars that he had, and Matchbox 20. And I said, I want to set up a meeting. And I showed up at his office and he says, what can I do for you, Roger? And I said, I want you to be my manager. And he said, okay, I'm your manager. What do you want me to do? I said, I want you to call up all your superstar clients and tell them that they need voice lessons. And he said, Roger, if I call up all my superstar clients and tell them they need voice lessons, they're going to fire me as a manager, because they're going to think I'm telling them that they are bad, that their voices are bad. They're going to think I'm insulting them. And so the reason I tell that story is because somebody needs to step up and say, you're not making the most of the greatest communication tool that you were born with, your voice. Somebody needs to say, stop hating on your voice and change it. And then watch the way that the world hears the new you. Watch the way that they react to you. Watch how your business and every relationship and communication is amplified times 10 in the positive direction. Somebody needs to say, it's time to focus on your voice. And I'm very happy to be that person.
Yeah. And that reminds me of something I learned from Michael Port, and that is, you're not speaking, you're performing. So if you use the musicality and the tone and pausing appropriately and all that sort of stuff, like the pregnant pause, just having them wait on your next word, and then, using all that, you're giving a performance. You're not giving a speech anymore. So that was a big paradigm shift for me. What are your thoughts about just working in throwaway words like or or I know you have strong opinions about that, so why don't you share with us?
I do. I have very strong opinions. I say is duh. And no matter how smart you are when you speak, the second you add a filler such as or like, or when they don't know, they need you to tell them. The second you add a filler, you suddenly sound infinitely less intelligent. And why do we want to make ourselves sound less intelligent? How is that going to achieve any great communication outcome? So these fillers are the devil to communication. They are destroying language as we should use it on the planet, and they're making everyone seem so much less intelligent. Instead of all of those fillers, and like, this is a great place for you to make silence. Do you know that every great composer in the world, musical composer, spends just as much time figuring out where the notes are as to where the rests are, where the silent spots are?
Right.
So if you took ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum, and you took out the rest, it'd just be ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, and you'd be like, what? You're like, what a bunch of dribble notes. You're like, too many notes. So instead of filling blank spaces, say real words and then close your lips. Take a breath in. Say real words until you run out of air and then stop, close your lips. Enjoy the silence, take a breath, and only speak while your stomach is coming in using real words. I have techniques to teach people exactly how to eliminate all the fillers so that you'll never do it again. When my wife and I had our first child, Madison, we thought we were genius. We decided as she learned language that we would make her think that and were swear words.
I remember you saying this in the event. That was awesome.
So that every she said,
I lost you there for about 10 seconds. So when you said we taught her that those are swear words.
Okay.
So okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Great. So my wife and I, when we had our first child, we thought we were brilliant. We introduced to her as she learned to speak that fillers like and were swear words. So if she ever said, where she was ever speaking and she said, we'd all go like this. Oh, that's a bad word. You're not supposed to swear. There's no swearing in this house. And then she grew up never using fillers. Here's the problem that happened later on in life. The teenage world added a new filler that didn't exist 24 years ago. And that one is like.
Yeah.
Now all the teenagers are like this and like, and we didn't know that was going to become a filler. So she has like illness, which I've helped her eliminate.
Literally is another one that is so overused. How often is it literally the thing, right?
Yeah, and literally, and people have made "and" their new fill, because they'll be speaking and then they'll say, "And now I want to talk to you about this, and now I want to talk to you about that." So even "and" has become a filler. And you know where this stems from? I'll tell you if you're interested.
I would love to know.
Some languages in the world have sounds that let the person who is speaking know that you're still listening to them. For example, the Japanese language. When someone is speaking in Japanese, blah, 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 the other person, when that person takes a breath, the speaker, they say, "Hai." So a Japanese conversation is blah, 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 "Hai." Blah, 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 "Hai." Blah, 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 "Hai." And "hai" means yes. Yes, I heard you. Yes, I'm not asleep. Yes, you haven't bored me to tears. Yes, thank you for talking to me. Yes, thank you. But we don't have anything like that in English. So we're speaking, and most people are bad speakers, boring speakers, monotone speakers, airy speakers, speakers with no emotion. So when all of a sudden we're speaking with no emotion, because that's the norm, when we get to a comma, we're afraid that people will just walk away or not want to talk to us anymore because we already don't like the sound of our voices. And we're thinking, why would they like the sound of our voices more than we do? So we get to places where there should be silence, and we don't have the confidence to let there be silence because we're trying to keep their attention.
Yeah. Or to keep control of the conversation where you're not using up talk as a way, or ending up as a way to keep the attention.
Exactly right. You're trying to keep their attention. So you're trying to fill all the spaces, but you end up filling them with non-words, which confuses the people even more, instead of doing what we already said. I'm speaking to you and I get to a comma, I go up, I take a breath. You know I'm not done, you'll wait for me. There's anticipation. What's Roger going to say? And then I'll keep doing it till I get to a period. Clearly Roger's not done. So we build up anticipation in the same way a composer writes melodies that they're called leading tones, where they lead you to something, and you know the song's not done. Nobody's singing, "The hills are alive with the sound of music." But that's the way we talk.
Yeah.
So we don't need fillers. We just need better melody to keep people interested.
Yeah. And fillers, they lower your IQ as perceived by
your
the
perceived
listener.
IQ.
Yeah.
That's right. And over the years you hear how important intelligence is. But what's been the buzz over the last few years? The thing that's really important is emotional intelligence above actual intelligence. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but the most successful people have emotional intelligence. Can you imagine how much emotional intelligence is related to actual sound in communication? The sounds you make that emotionally move people, and the way you listen to other people, the hearing the sounds they make. They used to say the eyes were the window to the soul, but now we know the voice is the window to the soul. So emotional intelligence, the way to really understand that is to learn to create the sounds that are emotional and learn to listen for the sounds. That moves you so much higher on the success scale anyways, because emotional intelligence rules.
Yeah, it sure does. And one thing that I think is really important to musicality, not just in speaking, but also, of course, singing, is chest voice, and that's something that you innovated. You've changed so many famous singers' lives, saved their voices, given them more vocal range and more depth to their voice. Can you explain chest voice and why it's important? Or no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So let me rephrase that. So you innovated this thing that you call middle voice. It's between head voice and chest voice. And it has changed the lives of so many of your clients, some of the biggest stars and singers in the world. They didn't have to lose their voice anymore and strain their voice, their vocal cords. They had so much more range, and they just sounded more awesome on stage and in the recording studio. What is this magical thing called middle voice, and why should we care?
Amazing question. I'm so glad you brought that up. Most people think that the maximum number of voices they have are two. What's called chest voice, down low. Because if you put your hand down the base part of your neck right here and you say, put it a little higher, literally at the very top of your chest, right at your neck, and you say, I can, Roger.
I can, Roger.
It feels like your index finger and your thumb vibrates a little.
It does, yeah.
So we call that chest voice because it feels like it vibrates at the top part of the chest. And then put your hand back.
Okay.
And say, wee!
Wee!
Now that doesn't feel like it
Not
vibrates
at all,
here.
yeah.
Most people feel that up here. So we call the high notes head voice.
Yep.
Now most people are sort of aware that there might be two voices. Chest voice down here, and then head voice way up here. But when people try to go back and forth, they find that there's an area in between where something terrible happens. Let's say they're singing or trying to speak higher, and they go, oh, there's a break.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you can't.
I hate when that happens.
And people think, well, I must be out of puberty because I'm already 40 or 50 years old. So it can't be puberty's fault that my voice is cracking. No. There's a big reason why that is. People crack as they try to go back and forth. The voice just drops out because they don't know about a third voice called middle, which is supposed to be this amazing, magical bridge that lives in between chest voice and head. And so I teach people how to find their chest voice, their middle voice, and their head voice, and make them all thick and strong, and connect them together so that you can speak or sing all the way up and down the range. Check out the difference. No middle. That's with chest and head, no middle. Now chest, middle, and head. When I show singers that they can go all the way up and down like that with no break, no pressure, no strain, that changes their universe.
Yeah.
When I tell speakers they can do it, the first thing they say is, who cares, Roger? I don't want to be a singer. And then I say, each of the voices has sounds that are already perceived by people as certain emotions. Chest voice has all these, let's close the deal. I'm strong. You're strong. These are the roots to my tree emotions. Middle voice has all this amazing, beautiful, magical, exciting. You need this right now. All the goosebumps on your arm are middle. And head voice has all the beautiful, sweet, kind, loving, gorgeous, sweeter sounds. You only have chest voice. You're only operating with 1/3 of all the sounds and all the emotions that you could make people feel. You have 3 voices. Sky's the limit. Yeah. That's why singers can make people cry or get up on the seats at a concert and shake their booty and dance when they don't do that at home, because all of those sounds have emotions. And when you have all 3 of those voices and you're a speaker, you never lose your voice. You have amazing sounds. And by the way, I just want to say this. Every single person who's listening to this right now is a public speaker. The definition of a public speaker is you open your mouth, sound comes out, and somebody hears you. There, you're public.
Yeah.
Could be the dog. You're still a public speaker. Could be one person or 1,000 times 1,000 people. You're a public speaker the second your sound goes public.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, so I know we're out of time. I want to reiterate for our listener that they get a special discount for the Perfect Voice online course, and that custom code that you put in is the word "speak" in all caps, as in marketing speak, and that gets you $50 off. So it's, instead of $147, it's $97. Which is incredible value for money. I can't believe it's so inexpensive. I'm not going to say cheap because it's inexpensive. It's amazing value for money. And you also have the in-person event too. So that's coming up in when? March, or when is that?
Coming up later on in 2020, in the first quarter of 2020. And if anybody's interested, they can just go to rogerlove.com and there'll be information about that as soon as we post the dates.
Yeah. But for now, go sign up for the Perfect Voice and get that discount and start there. You're going to get a life-changing impact just from that. So if you could leave our listener, our viewer, with one thing that we have not talked about, one little nugget that would change their world, what would it be?
You were all born singers. When the doctor pulled me out of my mother, I knew exactly what to do. I took a big breath, diaphragmatically, and I busted out the only tune I know. And then we listen to all of the people around us who talk with no musicality, no emotion, and we've lost all of the singer part of our voices, and we've become speakers, which has become sort of a negative word. I exist to help put the music back in your voice so that every sound that comes out of you will move people emotionally. Find the music in you, and then finally be the great communicator that you were born to be.
Yeah, I love it. And you are an embodiment of that, not only with your clients, but with your own family. You mentioned Madison, your daughter. She's famous, right? She's like a big deal in the world. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yes, even though my wife says if I keep bragging about my children, that one day she's going to change the locks. But I'm so proud, of my kids. And you brought up Madison, and Madison is a hit songwriter. She's had 3 number 1 hits in the last 2 years, a number 1 across everything. And so she is achieving amazing success at finding her voice as a songwriter and helping big stars, sing her songs and reach millions and millions of people. Her streams are already over 2 billion streams of people listening to her songs. So
incredible.
Couldn't be more proud, and she's working on her own artist career as well. And 2020 will be the year that she also starts to release more of her own music with herself as the artist. But yes, it's a very vocal family.
That's awesome. Do you want to share what one of those songs is that we probably have all heard?
Her first hit was a song called Bad Things by Camila Cabello. Am I out of my head? Am I out of my mind? And that was number 1. And her next hit was a song with Halsey, a song called Him and I. Cross my heart and hope to die. This Him and I. And her latest hit is number 1 in 23 countries, a song called Sweet But Psycho. Oh, she's sweet but a psycho. And she has so many more songs and so many more coming, but those are her first 3 number 1 hits in the last 2 years.
Amazing. Wow. And you're clearly a very proud dad, and rightfully so. That is incredible. And what a gift that you gave to her, like the gift of music and voice and like from the moment she came out of the womb that you were coaching her essentially. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And I want to say that I'm proud of you for the content that you're transmitting to your listeners and your following, because you're really spoon feeding them things that couldn't get anyplace else, and you really have their best interests at heart. And I want to thank you, and I tell you I'm proud of you for the show that you do and the information that you put out.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot, Roger. I appreciate it. All right, so we're out of time. Thank you again, Roger. Now, listener, please go take some positive, powerful action with this. And this is not just entertainment or education or edutainment. This is transformational information. So go transform with it. This is your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.